Well, I make it a personal point not to watch other commentators really at all. I obviously know the work they do, but I don't like. I just, number one, I don't have the time. But number two, one of the reasons I don't listen to Ben Shapiro or any of these other guys regularly is because I don't want to pick up ideas that I then assume are my own and just kind of, if I'm gonna come up with something, I like it to be mine. And if it turns out it's the same thing, I stole it from them. At least I stole it from them without knowing I was stealing it from them. With all that said, a couple of nights ago, I was listening to a segment of Tucker Carlson on YouTube, and the segment was called "Joe Biden is in Real Trouble," and I thought, okay, Tucker pointed out something to me that is probably obvious to you guys by now, but I think is really the operational phrase here. The Joe Biden document scandal is in motion. It continues to evolve, and I don't really want to get into the details of it right now other than to say large numbers of classified documents have been found in his car, in his garage, and other places it shouldn't be. I don't even want to get into the Trump angle on it. What Tucker Carlson said was what the reason that Biden is in trouble is because these leaks were revealed by his own people. And furthermore, they were reported on by the mainstream news media, which sat on the Hunter Biden laptop story. And furthermore, his attorney general has really much instantly assigned a special prosecutor. He said, and I think he's 100% right on this, if Republicans had had this information, it would have simply gone down the same memory hole as anything else. Like the laptop story. But the fact that Democratic aides are leaking that we found this stuff, and pro-democratic news stories are covering this story, and an extraordinarily progressive attorney general is in fact assigned a special counsel on this thing. Tucker's point is that he's in trouble because this is coming from his own team. Oh, and hi, everybody. I'm Bill Whittle here with Steve Green and Scott Ott. Steve, this does seem to be like leaks from inside the palace, right? This is not the Republicans accusing him of things, and the story continues to gain traction rather than to evaporate, which is what you would expect. Given the amount of trouble that they went to cover the laptop story with his son Hunter, which most people who were questioned about it said changed the results of the 2020 election. Turns out that this information on the documents was also known to the news prior to the 2022 midterms, but they held it long enough for that. But now that that's over, it's beginning to look almost unavoidable that the Democratic Party has decided that Joe Biden is not an asset in 2024 in the best possible case, and may no longer be. It may no longer be possible to cover for him as his mental state continues to decline. It looks like it's an inside job, is what I'm trying to say.
I'm less convinced that you are that this is a case, and let me tell you why. Although I'm not dismissing the possibility that this is Biden's own White House trying to bring him down, but there are a few details that leave me unconvinced so far. One is the press isn't going full Trump on him. They're still trying to do their best to cover. The explanation is, this is far fewer documents than Trump had.
And he's cooperating. It's all a different thing. Yeah.
They didn't send the FBI. In fact, my favorite detail of this story is we know that there are classified documents. Instead of sending FBI people with clearances to sort through all these papers and get the classified stuff out of there, Biden's own people, lawyers with no clearances, are the ones doing this. So they're getting a total pass on so many things. Everybody I know who has a clearance, and because of where my wife used to work and because of people I know online and in the real world, I know a lot of people with clearances. They are so mad about the white glove treatment that Biden is being given on this, because every single one of these people say, if that were me, I'd be fired at best. That is the nicest possible outcome, and not lose their clearance and never work in the field again, all the rest. And the worst is, jail time. So don't think that Biden is really getting held to the fire here. He's really getting a kid glove treatment. The other is, I was all excited about Merrick Garland, I've never been excited about Merrick Garland in my life, appointing the special prosecutor because, oh man, maybe we'll get to the bottom of this. But Merrick Garland is Biden's wingman just as much as Eric Holder was Barack Obama's wingman. So it's not. Don't get too excited about whatever limits are going to be placed on the investigation, or because limits will probably be placed on the investigation. But the real key, I wasn't cheating on you guys, I swear. But on Thursdays I do another show with Stephen Cruiser, and our guest on 5 o'clock somewhere last Thursday was Larry O'Connor. And Larry is the guy who said, yeah, the real purpose of the special prosecutor is so that when the Republicans in Congress, in the House, try to hold investigations, they can be told, you're interfering with the special investigation that's already going on in the executive branch. So that'll be his job isn't to get to the truth. His job is to prevent the GOP House from getting to the truth. So you put all these things together, and I'm not convinced that this is the story that's going to keep Joe Biden off the ticket in 2024. However, if this isn't it, it's going to be something.
Why don't you elaborate on that? Because that kind of goes to the point I'm trying to make. Is this the Democratic Party on some level deciding that they want to either boot Joe now or I think much more likely make certain that he's not going to run in 2024?
I read it more as the warning shot across the bow. If they really let this snowball, it could be maybe a Watergate level thing. I don't know. Who knows how many and what documents he has. And as vice president, he's not allowed to have any of those. The president can declassify anything he wants and in any way he wants. He has total authority. If he wants to wave burning sage over a stack of documents and say, I declassify thee, then they're declassified. The vice president has no authority whatsoever. He doesn't even have any constitutional duties other than to sit around in the Senate and wait for the president to die. So there's that.
Neither does the Secretary of State, for that matter.
Yes. So, excuse me. So that's it.
Well, Scott, here.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, finish up, Steve. No. I wanted to.
Yeah, this just looks to me like, Joe, we've got this. We got a bunch of other stuff. We can drag you through the mud, or you can decide you would like to spend more time in the shower with your daughter.
So you do think it is designed to keep him out of 2024?
Warning shot, yeah.
Well, Scott, one thing that this has done, obviously, is pretty much blunted whatever attack that they had, what seemed to be the best attack on Donald Trump, the raid on Mar-a-Lago. I said I wasn't going to get into it, but basically that is their last best hope in terms of finally criminalizing Donald Trump to the point where he won't be able to run again. But clearly, whatever the meta of stuff that's happening behind the curtain, or maybe nothing's happening behind the curtain, the bottom line is this enormously lessens the weapon that could be used against Trump, saying, my God, well, he had classified documents in his own home. As Steve pointed out, the president has the ability to declassify anything just by simply declaring it so. So it certainly seems to have pulled the rug out from underneath what appeared to be the Democrats' best move against Trump. Essentially seems to have negated the whole thing as far as I can see. So why do you think it is that CNN is covering this story, and why do you think it's getting the traction it's getting?
MSNBC is covering the story. I mean, they're
okay.
And not only are they covering it on the news, they're talking about it. I saw a clip from Morning Joe, which, by the way, is still a thing. And Joe,
I had no idea.
Joe went off. He had a panel of guests that he was going to ask questions to, and the first up in the panel was Donnie Deutsch, who apparently has some book about branding, and Donnie Deutsch is some sort of expert on branding, apparently. And he goes, okay, Donnie, let me ask you. And they pull Donnie up on the screen next to Joe and Mika. And so and then Joe starts talking. 5-6 minutes later, Donnie's still standing there, sitting there silent, staring into the camera, not having had a moment to say anything, while Joe continues to rant and rave. And his his passion was not so much over whatever might be contained in these documents or how much of an infraction of the law it is, but the terrible botching of the public relations aspect of it by the Biden White House, and the fact that they weren't as forthcoming as they should have been, and how bad it looks. But somehow Biden's communication team can't get on top of this, and there's this drip, 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 as Joe said, aspect of it, where it just keeps coming. During that little 5 to 6 minute rant, Joe repeatedly said how this was orders of magnitude different than the Donald Trump document situation, but
Sure.
nevertheless. So finally, when he got Donnie Deutsch got a chance to talk, Deutsch agreed with him and said, yes, this is orders of magnitude different than the Trump situation, but not to the average American. We know that there was a great difference between these two for these reasons, boom, 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 and he listed them. But he said the average American just sees two politicians who took documents that they weren't supposed to have and kept them in places where they weren't supposed to be. And so, yeah, in a sense, Deutsch was saying that kind of neutralizes it. It's a wash. There are penalties on both teams. Replay the down.
That's it. Opposing penalties. That's
Yes.
a great way to think about it. That's exactly right.
And so no ground has been gained on either side, even though the cases will roll on both of them in the public mind. He said not in a legal sense, but in a political sense and in an electoral sense in the public mind. These are two guys who did things, it reminded me of good old sloppy Sandy Berger, who accidentally smuggled
I wrote a funny
classified
article about that.
documents out of the archives or somewhere in his socks or something.
in his pants, yeah.
Yeah. So he didn't, apparently inadvertently stuffed classified documents into his hosiery. I think that that the president is not being protected in the way that he previously has been. They're still being defensive,
Yes.
and they're saying, hey, we don't know how many documents, we don't know how great an offense this is. It's certainly nothing as bad as what Donald Trump did. And I think that this provides an opportunity for a graceful exit where, the president can say, look, I know that there are questions here. We don't want the party to be tainted by questions going into an election season. And so I think I'm just going to gracefully step aside if my wife will simply show me where the door is and take my hand. And this gives him a chance to bow out with some shred of dignity, with a track record of some level of performance, at least in terms that the Democrats would appreciate, and for the Democrats to bring someone else in and say, look, we can't make the entire 2024 election cycle about a war of who stole which classified documents and stored them in his garage.
The analogy of offsetting penalties is just perfect. I mean, that to me is just exactly precisely what it is. Oh, look, it's not a touchdown; it's holding. Oh, wait. Oh, okay. So we got an extra player.
Do-over.
Oh, come on.
I don't think
it's a
I can do
do-over,
a
right,
do-over of 2020 or 2016. That might do
thanks.
me in.
Yeah.
Well, there's other things in play here too, and one of them is that they keep trotting out. Well, first of all, they're letting Biden speak about this more than usual, and that's never good because he doesn't handle these kind of things very well. And then you've got Karine Jean-Pierre, who's out there on a daily basis. Well, what about this? I would refer you to this. I would refer you to this. It's this robotic kind of a constant answer. Why even have a press conference? You know what everybody's going to ask about. You're going to have the same non-answering answer. It doesn't look good. It does not look good. I suspect, as most people do, that this is just a way to, because Biden has announced that he's planning, at least he's leaning towards running again in 2024. I think most people realize that he's not going to be able to be in any condition to run in 2024. And while I would like to see the Easter Bunny come into the Oval Office and kindly escort him out the door and give him an ice cream cone, I think that there is something more serious going on here. And it also, of course, opens the door for a Republican-controlled House of Representatives. It gives them something other than we don't like Joe Biden and all of the mysteries of the laptop in China. These are actionable, concrete pieces of evidence. That opens up impeachment possibilities, or at least grounds for impeachment that go beyond the kind of vapors, well, he's had dealings with China and all the rest of it. The only reason I wanted to bring the story up in the first place is clearly something has changed. The way that this story is being handled indicates that there is a change on how the Democratic media industrial complex is treating Joe Biden. He's not getting the cover that he used to get. And in fact, he's starting to get poked and starting to look a little bit uncomfortable. And I'll just close this by saying, honestly, watching these press conferences, Peter Doocy sounds like the voice of God or something. It's like you're in this fevered delusion. You're cold turkeying out of heroin addiction, and you're seeing elephants and the walls are moving, and then all of a sudden this voice comes in and it just says, "Yes, but that doesn't make sense. Why would you do this?" It's like this. You know what it is? It sounds like a reporter, is what it sounds like. He sounds like a reporter.
Bill, do you know what,
who's asking questions.
You know what happened last week? KJP had a moment of contention with a reporter who wasn't Peter Doocy. It was somebody named Ed, and I don't know his last name, but she was saying, Ed, you don't have to do this. We don't have to have all this contention. Here we have a press secretary for the most powerful man in the world who can't handle a smidge of contention from one of these, usually friendly reporters. It's a hell of a thing to see.
Peter Doocy is almost seeing him stand there by himself and ask pointed questions and not take no for an answer. It just makes me wish Norman Rockwell were still alive, because there really is a portrait in there somewhere. You know what I mean? God bless you, Peter Doocy. This story is going to continue to evolve, and I think the real key will be if between now and the next, let's say during the course of the next year, if there's another fresh kind of a scandal that gets this kind of attention, then we can have some fairly strong reassurance that the Democratic Party has figured out that honest Joe Biden may have run out of usefulness, and couldn't happen to a nicer guy. For Steve Green and Scott Ott, I'm Bill Whittle. We'll see you next time here on Right Angle.